I am the feminine in your mind, Carlson.
Terence McGuana, welcome back to Canon Forever, and today we're going to be talking about Lifeforce from 1985. After an alien spacecraft is discovered by the crew of a European space shuttle, 3 humanoids in a state of suspended animation are brought back to Earth. It quickly becomes apparent that these beings are not friendly, are intent of draining the entire human race of its life force. This film, Lifeforce, was one of the first big budget productions that Canon Films put together. It cost something in the region of $30 million and absolutely tanked at the box office. This film was based on the novel Space Vampire by Colin Wilson and was adapted into a screenplay by Dan O'Bannon, who famously wrote Alien. Tobe Hooper, the director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, had just come off directing the box office smash Poltergeist. So Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus signed him onto a 3-picture deal, and he was so excited that he got to direct this film, Lifeforce, because at the time Tobe Hooper had become tired of just being pigeonholed as a horror movie director. I think this is a really interesting slant on the vampire mythology. A lot of people remember this film because of the Space Girl character played by French actress Mathilda May, who was 19 at the time, and that was at the request of Menahem Golan that this character had to be completely nude when they appeared at the earlier scenes in the film, where these characters, these space vampires, they don't bite your neck, they don't drink your blood. What they do is they lock lips with you and basically suck the life right out of you to the point where you become this shriveled up corpse. When I first saw this film years and years ago, I thought that was very silly. I didn't find that compelling in the slightest, right? But on a rewatch, I started to think, wow, these vampires are really malevolent. When you think about it, there is no way of negotiating with these creatures, and they absolutely hypnotise you. As soon as you see one of these humanoids, right, then you are completely under their control. Right, and they're not talking to you, they're not trying to negotiate with you, they're not trying to sort of seduce you in any way. There isn't any, and there's no opportunity of you becoming a vampire. Well, there is a sort of opportunity for you to become like them, but it really isn't pleasant, right? You become a shriveled up mess, and then if you suck the life force out of someone else, then oh yeah, you can come back, and then if you don't get to suck out the life force off of someone, then you completely disintegrate, right? I think that the 1980s was really a revisionist period for vampire movies, right? They did away with all the castles and the candlelit scenes and all this sort of gothic cliches, and we started to get films like Fright Night, The Lost Boys, Innocent Blood, Vampire's Kiss. We started to get these sort of strange, interesting, quirky, off-the-wall vampire stories. I was really enchanted with the visual effects and the opening scenes where they have the European space shuttle discover this alien spacecraft. And I understand that when the astronauts go into this massive chamber, that was an entirely real set. I would say for me, the standout performance in this film is Steve Railsback. Steve Railsback plays the American astronaut who's on board the European space shuttle, which is an absolute disaster for all of them, because they bring back these humanoids and they wipe out everybody on the crew besides him, right? And you get a little bit more backstory as to what actually happened there in flashback. He really carries the mythology of these creatures and how we should really fear them, right? His acting really sends it home that these creatures are malevolent, right? And he has a sort of psychic link with Mathilda May's Space Girl character. I don't want to go into too many spoilers of this film, but eventually this film becomes a massive alien invasion movie. I found this film very exciting. There isn't a dull moment in it. The level of female nudity in this did make me reminiscent of Hammer horror. Also with the London setting, it was almost like, yeah, this is a Hammer horror film if the vampires came from outer space. And it's a big shame that this flopped like it did, because I would have loved to have seen Tobe Hooper go on to make more big budget movies. I think this was the biggest budget that he'd ever had. I highly recommend Lifeforce as a sort of revisionist vampire movie and as a science fiction disaster film at the same time. And just an added note, there is a bit in it that really stands out for me, right? Where there's a double-decker bus in London that explodes at one point, right? And on the bus it has this slogan, Glasgow smiles better. Glasgow smiles better, or Glasgow smiles better, whichever way you want to say it. Now, I grew up in the 1980s, and at that time Glasgow had this advertising slogan, Glasgow smiles better, Glasgow smiles better. And it was done as a sort of way of bringing more tourists to Glasgow, right? Because this city had a reputation of being a violent, horrible place, right? Which it's not, right? It has its good and it's had its bad in parts, but because of the reputation that it had from the 1960s with the razor gangs and things like that, there was a active campaign called Glasgow Smiles Better that they used to try and attract more tourists, and it worked. Apparently it was a very popular advertising campaign, and I recall that in the 1980s that was a period where Glasgow started to get more rejuvenated, right? And seeing that slogan in a big budget Hollywood production exploding in a bus, it just takes me right. It just brings me some nostalgia. I think because the film had this level of nudity in it, right, and that's going to bring up its rating, right? It's going to be a 15 or an 18 or a R-rated movie. It's going to be an R-rated movie because of the nudity in the film. So I thought to myself, then, if you're going to have this level of nudity in it, you may as well have that level of violence, right? Not that I'm advocating for more violence on screen, but I think because of the level of nudity in the film, I think it was justifiable that it should have had a bit more gore, a little bit more terror, a little bit more sort of violence happening on screen. And I know that Tobe Hooper is definitely one of those directors who would deliver something like that, but you can see that he wasn't interested in making a horror film here. He was interested in making this science fiction adventure story, and it works as that, right? I think he's just done an amazing job, and I think that Lifeforce will go on as this great cult movie because it is highly entertaining. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscription button. I'm Terence McGuana. I'll be back very soon with another Canon film. Hope you have a lovely evening. Take care.